Picture this. It's June 2nd, 2026, San Francisco. Microsoft is opening its massive Build developer conference. But instead of the usual triumphant fanfare, the energy in the room is, well, it's tense. It is genuinely awkward, and to understand exactly why the biggest tech company in the world felt entirely on edge, we need to drop right into the massive, sweeping promise they used to close the show.
Satya Nadella gets on stage and enthusiastically drops this bombshell. Come summer, we will be bringing coding to all knowledge work within one Copilot super app. You can have chat, cowork, and code all in Copilot. Now that sounds amazing, right? A total unification of all their AI tools in one place. But the crazy part? The absolute elephant in the room here is that despite this monumental announcement, there was absolutely no demo, no screenshots, no release date, literally nothing but that one sentence delivered to the crowd.
So naturally, everyone is sitting there wondering, where was the demo? Why tease something so fundamental to the entire ecosystem without actually showing it in action? Well, this missing super app was actually made infinitely more glaring by a massive controversy that had just erupted 2 days prior. Microsoft had abruptly switched GitHub Copilot from a flat monthly subscription to a token-based billing model. Developers were suddenly burning through their monthly credits in a matter of hours. The ceiling was suddenly very, very visible, and users were furious. So the juxtaposition here was just stark, an immediate billing crisis on one hand and this phantom invisible super app on the other.
All right, Section 1, 2017, 8 authors and an architecture.
To figure out how we ended up here, how Microsoft found itself in this fragmented predicament in the first place, we have to rewind the clock 9 years. Because this whole story actually kicks off with a pivotal 2017 research paper published by 8 researchers at Google Brain. It was called Attention is All You Need, and it introduced the transformer architecture. The absolute game-changer concept here is self-attention. Instead of processing data step by step, one word at a time like all the older models did, self-attention gives an AI model the ability to weigh the relevance of every part of an input against every other part simultaneously. This breakthrough unlocked massive, parallel scalability. It wasn't some shiny product announcement, it was pure math that would silently change the world.
Moving on to Section 2, 2019, the partnership and the pipes.
Flash forward 2 years, and Microsoft makes a staggering $1 billion bet. They strike an exclusive computing partnership with a relatively small AI lab at the time called OpenAI. Microsoft saw the sheer potential of these scalable models, but OpenAI desperately needed something they just couldn't afford on their own: unprecedented, mind-boggling supercomputing infrastructure. It's a brilliant dynamic. Think of it like this. On one side, you have the models. OpenAI brought frontier AI development and this massive, insatiable need for compute to chase artificial general intelligence. On the other side, you have the pipes. Microsoft brought the mighty Azure infrastructure, the deep pockets, and massive commercial distribution. The arrangement was simple but profound. All future GPT models were trained under one figurative roof. Microsoft supplied the plumbing, OpenAI supplied the models.
Tracking the timeline here, you can see how this foundational tech just steadily advanced. We go from that 2017 transformer architecture to the 2019 exclusive partnership. But 2021 is where the terminology we throw around today was actually born. Microsoft-owned GitHub rolls out a technical preview for a code completion tool. It was fine-tuned on public source code repositories using an OpenAI model called Codex. They named it GitHub Copilot. And this was the moment that proved AI could be a true daily workflow assistant, an actual second pilot, rather than just a neat parlor trick.
Which brings us to Section 3, 2022, the acceleration.
Okay, this is where the AI timeline stops casually walking and breaks into an absolute dead sprint. Everything Microsoft had been planning at a measured, safe corporate pace, completely thrown out the window by a single product launch that rewired the internet overnight. 100 million. That is the number of users ChatGPT acquired in just 2 months following its release in November 2022. A pace of consumer adoption with literally zero precedent in tech history. Inside Microsoft, this explosion forced an absolute scramble. Integrating large language models into their core products wasn't a question of if anymore, it was a desperate high-stakes question of how fast and under what architecture.
But here's the thing, you can't just plug a raw, wildly unpredictable research model directly into a consumer product. You need a bridge. For Microsoft, that bridge was the Prometheus system,
This was their proprietary orchestration layer. It essentially took OpenAI's raw GPT models and bolted them onto Bing's search index, adding grounding, citation, and absolutely crucial safety guardrails. It was the heavy, unglamorous engineering work that sat squarely between the raw magic of a language model and a reliable, usable product.
Section 4, 2023 to 2024, Scaling the Platform.
Going into 2023 and 2024, Copilot morphed from a niche developer tool into an absolute behemoth of a platform. This concept violently exploded outward, touching basically every corner of Microsoft's software empire. Just look at this rapid-fire rollout. February 2023, Bing Chat drops, along with some very public early drama with an emotionally volatile underlying model internally named Sydney. By March, Microsoft 365 Copilot hits the enterprise, jamming GPT-4 into Word and Excel. Late 2023, everything gets consolidated under one Microsoft Copilot brand. In 2024, they roll out Copilot Pro for consumers. And then a massive structural shift. Copilot Plus PCs arrive, packing local neural processing units, or NPUs, moving AI inference right down to the local hardware.
And all that relentless, aggressive expansion leads directly to another massive number, 15 million. That is the number of paid enterprise seats Copilot racked up by the end of 2024. But take a second to process what that kind of scale actually means, because with insane scale comes dizzying, suffocating complexity. Copilot was no longer just one neat little tool.
Section 5, 2025, Tension and Fragmentation.
As Copilot grew into a monster, OpenAI's own enterprise ambitions were growing too. And that original clean partnership we talked about, it began to buckle under immense competitive pressure. It's fascinating to track this evolution. In 2019, it was pure shared ambition with exclusive OpenAI GPT models. Fast forward to 2024, and Microsoft literally adds OpenAI to its formal list of competitors in its annual report. By 2025, the dynamic is just wild. They're simultaneously customers, vendors, and rivals. Microsoft even started routing workloads to rival models like Anthropic's Claude right inside Microsoft 365. The models were becoming a commodity choice, while Azure desperately fought to remain the essential pipe.
Section 6, 2026, Delivering One Copilot.
And that brings our story crashing right back into the messy reality of the June Build conference. Microsoft's core problem wasn't about launching new AI anymore. It was the colossal, messy task of delivering one unified Copilot experience. Just think about the visual clutter. By 2026, Copilot was a consumer chat interface, an enterprise productivity layer, a dev tool, a search engine feature, a dedicated hardware category, all suffering from incredibly fragmented login states. It was everywhere, and because it was everywhere, it felt completely disjointed, which perfectly explains exactly why Microsoft desperately needed a single, unified super app. They needed a container to hold all these sprawling, chaotic pieces together.
Which ties perfectly back into those two major storylines from Build 2026 that we opened with. On one hand, you've got the billing change. Moving developers to a token model was a direct consequence of Copilot's huge success and the insanely high compute costs of agentic workflows. Flat rates just couldn't eat the cost anymore. On the other hand, you have the super app tease, a direct, desperate response to that severe fragmentation. The main takeaway here is that both the billing outrage and the missing app are symptoms of the exact same history, 9 years of unsimplified rapid accumulation.
So, what was this super app actually supposed to be? It was envisioned as a unified shell meant to seamlessly combine Copilot Chat, GitHub Copilot, a collaboration tool called Cowork, and an always-on agent called Scout. Internally, the whole vision was dubbed Delivering One Copilot. But while individual pieces of this puzzle actually shipped at build, like the Scout agent, the unified shell, the thing meant to hold it all together, remained a complete ghost. It just wasn't ready for the spotlight. I want to leave you with this really brilliant observation from the Tech Reader magazine analysis. They wrote, "Attention is also what the product history described here has always been competing for. Developer attention, consumer attention, enterprise attention." It just ties the entire narrative together so perfectly, right? Going all the way back to the highly technical self-attention computation in that 2017 Google paper to the literal everyday human attention that Microsoft is desperately fighting to capture and hold on to today. And so we wrap up with this pretty profound question. Can Microsoft actually take 9 years of rapid accumulation from massive supercomputing clusters down to fractured consumer tools and finally present it as a single trustworthy daily workspace? Whether that super app ever actually materializes to solve this fragmentation, well, that's exactly what the summer of 2026 is going to reveal. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope it helped you see the fascinating and visible architecture shaping the tools we're using every single day. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.